In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what draws behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking, with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons will breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners. Oh, hello, 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 hello. Shout out to one and all. Shout out to one and all. You know, there are patterns to things. There are patterns to things. You might not be able to predict the path of the individual air molecule, but you can see the pattern of the wind. You can see the patterns of the tides. You can see the patterns also of human behavior. Okay? Ain't that right? Ain't that right, Wallace and Terrence? How about this pattern that we notice? You know that one where people start going to the gym in January after their New Year's resolution? Okay? They start going to the gym after the New Year's resolution, and then things tend to fall apart. The people who own gyms, you know, see these patterns. You know, businesses see patterns such as this because it affects their business. There are patterns to human behavior. And you see these people with their patterns, right? They have other patterns that they manifest in their life, right? They have other patterns that they manifest in their life, right? They have relationships at work or relationship with their work life, right? Relationship with their occupation, even with themselves that keep going through the same pattern. It's almost like they keep making using the same ingredient, right? You keep using the same ingredient to make these different dishes. You make chicken, you make beef, you make stew, soups, all different ingredients, but this one thing is common, right? I'm talking about the common denominator aspect of the patterns in your life, right? So that looking at the man in the mirror and asking that question is something that we all have to ask. That's my long-winded, kind of convoluted, crazy way of just talking about introducing this idea of looking at the man in the mirror, the accountability, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, first, how's it going, John?
It's going good. It's going good. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. I am fine, thank you. Now, we will be reviewing Brini Lee. I believe that's how she refers to herself. Are you
Brini
familiar
Lee.
with her?
She's British.
She is British, indeed.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen her pop up in my feed, and you know, I watched one of her motivational videos, and I thought it was pretty good. You know, she's like sitting in her car, just trying to motivate you. So that's basically my impression of her. I've never really looked at her other videos, but I kind of glanced at her uploads, and it looks like she definitely had something to say about certain people. So it's gonna be really interesting, you know, what she's gonna say about her video in this one.
Oh, what does she have to say about certain people? You sound like what? Well, there's some inside baseball going on. You guys got beef. What's going on?
Yeah, she was. There's a video. Well, I think it was our first show that we did together. She was criticizing that guy Paul. Paul, remember that show that we did?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Paul and Chioma.
Yeah. So she criticized him in a video. So it's like, oh, men like Paul. So I'm like, okay, let's see what she has to say.
Men like Paul.
Yeah.
Right. Guess what kind of men she dates?
Yep, probably. You know, successful, has money. You know.
Yeah, guess what kind of men she dates and gets. Okay. And by the way, no. Look, I was just here yesterday talking about, hey, of course the woman wants
whether you call it whatever the markers of betterment are. And also we had a video talking about, colorism. Why do you want lighter? Right? It just
Mhm.
whatever it points to betterment economically and so on and so forth, we gravitate towards, right? So why would you not go with someone who you think can benefit you financially, economically? And also those financial and economic spoils are markers of some other things, right? Of strength, stability, so on and so forth. On the
Yeah,
lower end
yeah.
of things, you can survive, you can protect, you can provide. Those kinds of things. So no shade on a woman going after that kind of guy, but you know what I mean. You're talking smack, like that's not. You keep on going to the same guy, right? And you keep on talking smack about him. We're talking
Yep.
about patterns, ladies and gentlemen. Are we starting to see a pattern,
Oh,
Joan? Are we
yes,
starting to see a
totally.
pattern and why I'm
Yes.
calling this one about patterns? Well,
Oh,
shout
yeah,
out,
of
ladies and
course.
gentlemen. So go ahead, go ahead. Any comments about that? Just perhaps you can go back to the whole Chama and Paul thing, where Chama is this successful guy, but works a lot, right? Was kind of the main complaint. I'm not getting mine. You're too rough, you're too hard edged, you work too much. And it's the whole I want Superman thing, but then I'm like, oh, come on. Why when I get Superman, right? Like, Superman is flying over, and I'm like, oh my God, Superman, I want Superman. And then I'm like, why you gotta be the Man of Steel? Why can't you be a cuddly bear when I command you to be? And why can't you just
Exactly.
follow what I say? It's like,
Yeah.
it's Superman, bro. But anyways, go ahead and comment on that if you will.
Yeah, I mean, with all the patterns that we've been analyzing so far, there's a lot of lack of self-awareness, not really knowing what you want. And yeah, you keep going after the same thing over and over and then not learning any lessons if it doesn't work out. So let's see if this Breenie lady has any lessons to learn today for everybody.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, cool. So I was speaking earlier on some kind of phony monologue about patterns. I said there are patterns to human behavior. And if you find yourself repeating the same patterns with respect to certain things like your work, your fitness, your discipline, or with certain relationships, certain styles of relationships, you always have these relationship patterns. They start a certain way and then they start to go a certain way and then they end the same way, right? Have we noticed that? have you have you noticed any such patterns in your life, Joan, especially in the relationship aspect? Because let me go ahead and lay some framework down as to why relationships are a very key aspect of this. Patterns that we repeat, but we refuse to look in the mirror. If there are two things, okay, remember two things as we go through this about hour and a half of review of this content, ladies and gentlemen. There are patterns that you're repeating. And then there's something else too, which perhaps is another pattern, which is the refusal to look at the mirror, the refusal to recognize the one ingredient that's present in all these dishes that tend to end up this certain way, the one common denominator. But let's now go into the relationship aspect of things in terms of the patterns that we see. Okay. And before I start playing the video, is there anything that you want to say about maybe patterns in your life, things that you have had to change, or perhaps maybe you were delusional about them before, but then you had to look in the mirror squarely
Hmm.
and say, hey, if this stuff keeps happening like this, or I keep interpreting it like this, or I keep moving people, or I keep choosing whatever it may be, I'm there all the time. Is there something I can do about it? Anything like that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was younger, definitely had my delusional moments. But as I've gotten older and wiser, yeah. And definitely during my self-development phase, which I'm still going through. I think we all go through that, and definitely more intense these last several years. But when it comes to relationships and patterns, I've learned now that I sit high up in a mountain. Yeah, it's all recognizing the ego in you and the ego in someone else, and trying to see past that ego. Like, people are the way they are. People don't intentionally harm you, unless if they do, then stay away from those people. But people don't go and say, oh, I'm going to hurt their feelings today on purpose. And that is something that I've learned for sure in all of my more recent relationships, and like my marriage right now, and even like the previous ones. Like, I've realized that people don't really want to hurt your feelings. People, they don't. People are generally kind. People have good intentions, but people are people. They behave the way they behave because of their past experiences. And in my past experiences, I come up with my own assumptions of people, like, oh, this always happens to me. This person's going to do it to me again because he's behaving the same way, or I'm seeing the same patterns. But It's about breaking free from your past and your past habits. You know, everything that we know now, it's because of our past. But if we can let go of the past and, you know, focus on what's in front of you and be able to recognize, like, hey, is my ego acting up? Oh, his ego is acting up. You know, let's figure this out. You know, we can move forward by realizing that a lot of times there's really no harm, you know, intentionally made in relationships.
100%, 100%. So shout out to Brini Lee. That was a very good, you know, kind of, shall we say, preface to this whole thing there. Kind of lay down your treaties saying, hey, basically, I have patterns from the past. What I am, what I know coming from the past. It's a recording, it's a pattern. It keeps on rolling like a stone, wants to keep on rolling downhill. If I don't break free from it, it's going to cause certain things to happen in the future. Even if I'm conscious of it and I say, hey, this thing is going to happen again, I tend to then make it happen again. In other words, if I say, hey, these things tend to happen to me, right? Which is not
Yeah.
taking full responsibility yet. Then you start looking for it and making sure that it happens again. You'll make sure
Right.
it happens again, right? And we're all, shall we say, quick enough to look back and see how we tend to do this. So I don't have to explain to you the mechanisms by which you manipulate people into doing things that, you know, you have already convicted them of in your head. Like,
Yeah, it's
this was
basically, yeah, sorry. You know, like your past your past like relationship situations, you know, that's what forms your personalities now, your habits now. And because of the past, you're really creating a predictable future unless you learn how to break free from your past and your, you know, habits created by your past. But yeah, at the end of it, you're creating a predictable future if you don't change the way, you know, you are now. Like, you don't change your habits, you don't break free from your past habits, you're going to create a predictable future.
excellent, excellent, excellent. So shout out to Brini Lee. Check her out. Okay, so she's talking about a relationship. She's going to share some things. They're going through a breakup, and then there's analysis, and we're looking at these patterns, and we're looking at the mirror. Let me know if you hear the volume there.
I know that everywhere around the world, somebody is facing a breakup, and I can tell you it's the most horrible thing that can happen because it almost feels like a death, but the person's not dead, right? It's like your future or the potential of your relationship was stolen, the rug was pulled up under you with no warning, really, and it can be very, very hard to process. And that's why I want to help you guys by sharing my own personal experience. I feel like vulnerability and transparency definitely helps a lot more than just being told, do this, don't do that, get over it, whatever. And so the beginning stage of my breakup were very, very hard. Like I mentioned in my first video, shortly after we broke up, my grandma passed away. So I found it very difficult to know which death to grieve first. And I can't lie to you, I couldn't think about my grandma's death. I was there, I was present, I was going through the motions, but the pain of that relationship and how it happened was almost too, like, I could get my head around my grandma dying. She had cancer. The doctor told us that if we don't have treatment, she's gonna pass away faster. So we're prepared for her to die. She lived to 90 years old, and we spent our last days together. We anticipated it. With the breakup, on the other hand, even though I broke up with him, I felt forced to do it for myself, for my own mental health. I felt forced to make the decision. When I made the decision, I don't even know where I got the strength to say enough is enough. But like I said in my last video, the wool had been pulled from my eyes, and I saw the relationship for what it really was, and not.
Okay, a couple of things here, Joan. Are we ready, Joan?
Sure. I mean,
So
she
a couple
sounds
of things that I
reasonable
just
right
immediately-
now.
Oh yeah, 100%. Sharing, right? The idea of sharing and being honest. But there is one thing she said there at the end. The wool was pulled from her eyes about the relationship. Would you mind commenting on that? Because we're not kids. We know how people tend to talk, people in general. And this is
Yeah.
about people, not her, right? When someone tells you the wool is pulled from their eyes, let me say my piece first. Okay. That is, for me, catastrophizing type of talk. In other words, maybe you get to meet one psychopath in your life. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe you get to meet one psychopath in your life and you're like, oh my God, I was in for a big surprise. this guy was crazy and the wool was pulled from my eyes, right? Turns out he was, whatever it may be. You get the point. Whenever I hear people, okay, again, this is not about this video. The reason I paused right there is because I heard her say the wool was pulled from her eyes. And I'm like, okay. I know she's been in a relationship with this person for a while, right? She didn't file any charges about nothing like that. No
Nope.
complaints of bruise, nothing like that. But then you say the wool is pulled from your eyes. I'm like, whoa. This sounds like that stuff where you were fantasizing about something.
Yep.
You stopped fantasizing, and now you're kind of harshly looking. It's almost like reality played a trick on you. Like, oh my God, reality, oh my, it's so horrible. And there you are. You're part of the reality. You're a bad person, right? So that is my initial take when someone says the wool is pulled from their eyes over something that does not result in some court case. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, when she says that, it sounds like, it just sounds like she had like this idea of this person. She's been holding on to this idea of this person all this time. Now, one day she finally admits that, hey, this idea of this person I had was not what I wanted. That's basically what it sounds like. She created this idea, and it's not, I don't know the guy, I don't know what she's going to say about him, but it's like, okay, well, when you have an idea of someone, it's not their fault that they don't live up to your expectations of your idea, because that's you or your ego creating this idea of this person, your expectation of this person. So when she says that, it's like, come on, you really didn't see any of this until now? Like,
because I've never, in terms of relationships with people, significant others, relationships of this kind, intimate relationships, I've never ever left any relationship thinking, oh my God, the wool was pulled out of my eyes.
No.
Oh my God, there's such a different. It's like, no, people are people. The shit that happens
Mhm.
because of varying egos at play, right?
Right.
And misunderstandings of the egos at play. Seen it 1,000 times happen. Nothing is surprising. This weird thing people do. They're like, oh my God, this person is such a. I'm like, no. Most people out there, just people.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's like playing victim again. It's like a lot of people have a tendency to do that. Like, oh, he did this to me. Oh, he lied to me. Oh, he pretended to be this. Oh, the wool looking from my eyes. Oh my God. Like, it's again, yeah, people are people. People just behave the way they do. They don't, for the most part, they don't intentionally harm you. But again, it's like, come on, you have to have enough. I don't know. I want to believe that people have enough like intuition and like instinct that like, hey, something's off. I mean, I've been through that where I've had an idea of this guy. I think, yeah, like previous relationship, like, I had this idea of this guy. It's like, oh my God, he's everything I'm looking for. But I think maybe a month into it, something felt off. And then 8 months later, I was just like, fuck, over. So it's again.
I mean, what was he? Was a secret? I don't know. What?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. He was emotionally unstable to the point where it's like, okay, it's not his fault, but me personally, I could not handle that at that point in my life. It's like there was something just seemed off, and then I found out he takes medication, for like depression, and I was like, okay, that's fine. People take medication for depression, but like I saw parts of him when he wasn't on it, and I was like, yeah, I can't deal with this. This is just like, like not his fault, but like this is just not the relationship for me. So, after several months, I was like, yeah, can't do this. But again, I really believe that people like, if you have that instinct, that like red flag, listen to it and, look into it, because maybe you're right, but again, it's intuition, right?
100%. And before we continue, we're just over here again talking about the wool pull from eyes, independent of anything she has said so far, or independent of her or her particular relationship. We're noticing, and I'm saying, hey, it's catastrophizing. And somebody may say, hey, Ike, you're kind of a stoic guy. Okay, you're a stoic guy, right? So it's like not everyone is stoic, or I mean, even for a guy, you're stoic, right? That kind of a thing. So it's like, well, that's a very small population. Like normal people don't do your silly cyborg stuff. How about us who feel, Ike? I'm like, okay. And there's that question down there on the screen that says, do I go into relationships with expectations? Related to this thing about me saying, why you catastrophizing, talking about wool, why didn't you see reality from the beginning? I have expectations, right? 100%. But they include the most important things. And the most important things are the negative ones. Okay, let me say that again. It tends to be the case that the negative, mundane, shit may go wrong type things, the oh my God, there may be a twist, a misunderstanding. How do I check for? Those are the only important things when it comes to looking at a long-term relationship. What do I mean by that? I'm not saying you haven't checked the boxes of this person is not a psychopath and whatever they ring your bell or what, in whatever way you want your bell rung and whatever else you're trying to do with them. Fine, right? But when it comes to expectations, you expect, for example, you expect that novelty is going to be there and then novelty is going to wear off, right? You expect that you're going to have some fantasies in the beginning and you cannot help it, right? You cannot help but have fantasies, right? I have the fantasies too. Fantasies are what? They're images in your head. Fantasy is not, it doesn't have to be a full-blown mental freaking psychotic break, okay? You're just going to have images in your head, right? And butterflies in your stomach and tingling in your spine and all that other shit. I expect those to happen when they happen, and I know that there's a pattern with it. I also expect that I have difficulties vis-a-vis the other person's perspective, as in, I'm not an easy person to deal with. Why would I be? Right? Nobody is an easy person to deal with. Let me repeat that. The question is about my expectations. The question is about why don't I ever say, oh my God, the wool was pulled out of my eyes from this relationship. I thought it was this, but then it turned out to be that. Ha, ha, ha. Why don't I ever do that? Because my expectations are such that I know about the novelty and that it will wear off. I know that I'm difficult to deal with because everybody else is difficult to deal with. Why is everybody else difficult to deal with? Because even us are difficult. We find ourselves difficult to deal with. Can I get an amen, Joan?
Oh yeah, amen. I mean, like, think about it. You look at yourself, like, ask yourself, would you date yourself? Ask yourself, like, would you, like, feel like it's easy to understand? I mean, we don't even understand ourselves sometimes.
The point is, you don't even have to ask yourself anything. I just leave you alone. Just leave yourself alone and look at your pattern and look how neurotic, chaotic, crazy, unable to follow through with the things you promise yourself, and so on and so forth are, right?
Yeah.
You are at war with yourself. And then you want to bring somebody else in and somehow imagine some kind of perfection.
Yep.
It is insanity. Okay, now that's my perspective, okay? The perspective, and I state it harshly, but I do not expect that everybody is there. It's, why should I?
Yeah, exactly.
They are evidently not there, right? They don't look at it that way. But the point is, look, you cannot even live with yourself. You cannot live with yourself. And until you understand the patterns that make it such that you find yourself difficult to deal with, and then recognize that these things are real and true, just like a rock on the road that this person has to sidestep and trip over sometimes, then you're not ready to understand and deal with long-term mishaps, long-term chaos, long-term reality. Anything after that, Joan?
Yeah, I mean, expectations. Yeah, we there's nothing wrong with having some, like, I expect to be with someone who at least knows what they want with their life, but I also don't expect them to want the same things all the time, which is a really important thing to realize. Like, you're never going to want the same things throughout your journey in life, like, maybe you want to have this career at that point and then you want that career at that point, like, it's okay. So when it comes to, like, dealing with people, in relationships, you can't expect them to be the same all throughout. And as far as, like, just going in, like, obviously you expect them to be nice to you, you expect them to treat you with respect. I mean, those are reasonable expectations, but you can't expect them to be the same throughout your whole relationship. It's all about evolving together, like sharing a journey together, sharing each other's self-development together, but, like, not depending on, like, this idea that you had of them in the beginning. Because it does change. You get to know them, you get to see them evolve, and then hopefully you see yourself evolve, and you go from there. And when you go into something, commit into a relationship, like, for me, it's just go all the way, be open to whatever comes at you, and just know that, like, we're all here to learn, we're all here to grow. And if you expect someone to just be this idea that, it's like, okay, so you're not expecting them to grow, you're not expecting them to become wiser? Or, you know, like those are things that is really
People grow
important
from
to
stumbling and troubles, right?
yeah,
So what
you
you're gonna,
know.
yeah, don't let me not cut you off. So basically, here's the situation, right? I just described that each and every one of you, me included, right, is a sick F, right? And if I left you alone, I'll see there's all kinds of sick F going on.
Oh man,
And
like think
sick
about
S.
it. All the thoughts that you have. If you said it out loud, you'd sound like you'd look like a crazy person. you
Exactly.
know?
So when you deal with yourself and you're dealing with all the chaos and all this stuff and you make mistakes and you grow and you stumble, a relationship is what? It's inviting someone else to witness that crap, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And you're going to witness their crap. And you guys are going to try to help each other out on that crap. And if you're coming in with a fantasy that does not include all of this, okay, I'll cool down. But that is my perspective, right? That's why I say the negative things, these things about the patterns of insanity that we have are the main things, okay? It's not the fantasies, right, about lollipops and crap. It's the realities of human beings being dangerous, warlike, killing each other, tribalistic, cannibalistic since forever, okay? There's a reality there, a nightmare reality of who you are. And then there's some fantasy that you want to take into a relationship. And I think that that's a pattern that we keep on repeating. This is about patterns that people repeat. Hence, the wool pulled down from my eye comment drew all that out of me. Like, oh, here's that pattern again.
Yep.
Of no need to repeat ourselves. Let's go. Let's continue. Shout out to Brini. Brini breaking it down.
Is enough. But like I said in my last video, the wool had been pulled from my eyes and I saw the relationship for what it really was and not the fantasy of what I believed or wanted to think it was. And I think that's the thing in relationships. A lot of us women, we're always looking at the bigger picture. We're always looking at the story, the fairy tale, the fantasy. And after breaking up with this guy, I'm not gonna lie, I went through the motions. I flip-flopped backwards to him, to me, to him, to me. I wanted him to help me to grieve my grandma. Like I needed that person that's been with me for 2 years, that's even, walked through the process with me to a certain extent of my grandma being ill. I wanted that person to be with me. I've moved out of my house. I don't have my mom and my family to grieve with. I'm in a new place. I'm 8 minutes away from him. So of course I'm like, I need you to help me. I need you to support me in this. And as much as I knew that relationship was over, and as much as I knew that I couldn't be with him, I needed that support, that comfort. I honestly just wanted things to go back to normal. I could not handle these big, massive changes in my life happening all at once. Big change, moving out. Big change, my grandma dying. Big change, breaking up with someone that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, get married, have kids, and have a family.
Okay. Let me kick this round off here. So there is what she said is, she lost her grandma, I believe, at the same time that the breakup happened. She chose the breakup, though. That's a key aspect of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
She chose to break up, which she said, she felt like she was forced into doing it, which is always, I felt like I was forced into robbing the bank. No shot at her. I'm just saying that, generally speaking, saying that you feel like you were forced to make a decision, again, no court cases and things like that, is kind of like, it goes back to the whole thing we just said for the past 10 minutes. Also, she wanted this same guy, right? And to me, this is kind of like, this can be such a horrible situation, right? If you still wanted him to be right by you in the grieving process. And she said she bounced back and forth, and we know how that goes, right? You break up, and then, you want to go back with the person. Probably got back with the person a couple of times, but going this back and forth so she decided to break up. He still was useful enough for certain aspects, though. Now, so what I want to say about this is, not knowing the full story, but using it as an opportunity for commentary. There's always going to be, if this person is good enough to be with you through the grieving process, what the hell are the parts of the contract that this person violates so much in the whole life partnership contract that you're going to throw them away? Again, if this is the person that you're like, oh, I just broke up with them, but I kind of wish they were here to grieve with me, they would be okay to sit there and grieve with you. And this is a whole life partnership contract. And we've already talked about the point of view that we have here, which is the point of view of reality, the point of view of you're sick and everyone else out there is sick. And to come and stare at each other's sicknesses for the rest of your life is what part of being in a long-term relationship is about. And if any other fantasies that you have in there is superfluous bullshit that tends to lead to the end of things, right? And no shout out to women, but it's women that tend to come with the superfluous fantasy bullshit. She even admitted it, right? She admitted that, oh yeah, us women, we tend to that. Fine. Good. Okay. This person is good enough to grieve with you, but you're going to throw them away on a life partnership contract. What do you have to say about that, Joan?
Oh my gosh. You know, so she broke up with them and then the grandmother died. Is that what you said?
About the same time, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, you know, you break up with somebody, the grandma passes, like you can't expect them to be, you know, there for you. You know, it's like, I don't know how well the guy knew the grandma, whatever, you know, like I don't know. I couldn't expect somebody to grieve with me if I've already broken up with them. Like I've, you know, hurt his feelings in that way, you know, like, I broke up with you, don't want to be with you, but hey, can you grieve with me? Like, come on, that's not fair. You know, I mean,
yeah, but what do you think about the fact that she actually wanted him for the grieving process? And again, I'm talking about these life partnerships, which have to do with your sickness, death, grieving, sorrow, life, entropy, chaos, what we know world to be. And this person, you're saying you desire them at this point of your lowness, right? In
Yeah.
a low emotional state, that they're good enough for that. Isn't that what it's all about?
Right. I mean, it's.
But you know, they have this thing that they do, and it just annoys you, and then this, and then that, and he's so full of himself, and or whatever it may be. But this is the person you desire to grieve with in this situation. And this, again, that's why I keep on saying this life partnership contract, because that life partnership contract is all about that kind of stuff. It's not about the other things.
Yeah, it does. It's, you know, so she doesn't want to be with him. But then she still chooses him to grieve with. Like, I want him to grieve with me.
But
and it's like,
isn't that strange to you?
Yeah, it is, because again, like if it's over, it's over. You can't expect that person to be there for you. But I think for her, it's just like that insecurity, you know, of feeling like, oh, I need a guy, like, or I need a partner during this time because I can't deal with this by myself. I mean, she can deal with it by herself. Come on. I mean, I guess she did, you know, but you know, you can't expect anyone to grieve with you. Like I've been through, you know, grandparents passing away. I never expected anyone to agree with me, especially if they didn't know them that well. You know, I actually, I went, like, I think one of my first relationships, my grandmother passed away. I didn't expect that much from him because it's like, first of all, he didn't really know her, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he just did what he felt comfortable doing. And that's all I can, you know, expect. I guess I can't force him to come to the funeral, to, you know, to see her dead body at a wake. Like I can't like expect him to do any of that. And like, yeah, you know, people will just do what they're comfortable doing, and you have to respect that. You know, maybe the guy just, like he doesn't feel comfortable grieving with her because, you know, I mean, who is the grandma to him, you know?
Shout out to Blind Guy, his wife, their life. They're here for Joan. $20, $20.
Oh, thank you.
Always very generous. Always very generous.
What's his actual name? I didn't catch what's his actual name? I just know him as Blind
Guy. Go ahead and put Corey, I believe, but go ahead and put the names of whomever is behind typing right now, behind the moniker. I want them to give whatever name they want to give.
Oh, okay, well, that's fine. If he wants to be anonymous, it's fine.
No. They're not anonymous. Check out their channel. Yeah, but it's not Corey over there trolling. I'm just kidding. So here is the thing again, in these kinds of patterns that we get ourselves into without understanding, and there's a question that was asked about, and we'll look at this. I'll think about it, Joan. And this is kind of funny here by Wallace about the cake.
Oh, let me see. Let me catch up. Hold on.
Point is, you want him to come. It's like, okay. Want you to pay for the cake, but how about let's eat the best part? That's a funny thing. However, let's continue. Okay, let's continue with this. And there was this question about what a man actually is versus what you may not think he is, and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's plenty that could be said about that.
Mhm.
But the main thing is reality. As I said, the main thing is the reality, which we just painted in stark terms. And in other words, let me ask this question. The question is this: why do people fight in relationships? The only true answer to that question is because they are people.
Yep.
That is it. Everything else is the contingency. Maybe one is a serial killer, one is whatever. Maybe one takes a fight too far. Maybe it was a stabbing fight. Maybe it was a screaming fight. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But it's the fact that they're people. And you're like, what do you mean, Ike? And then I just told you, hey, even you can't live with yourself. Even you are frustrated with yourself. Even you can't keep commitments to go to the gym. Even you repeat broken patterns with yourself over and over again. Even you are a sick effer. So what is this issue with not understanding the source of strife in the world? It's you. So what a man is, what a woman is, and the specifics of it, I think that is a secondary but relevant concern. But that people don't pay attention to reality is the primary concern.
Yep.
That's why the therapists are making money and so on and so forth.
Oh my God.
Shout
yes.
out. Let's continue the video. Indeed. Indeed.
Could not handle all of these big changes happening at once. And I just wanted everything to go back to normal. I wanted my relationship to go back to normal. I wanted my grandma to be back. I did not want to be back at home. But I just wanted a sense of normality again. So I'll hold my hands up and I'll say I flip-flopped back. It was only once or twice though. So kudos to me. But for some reason, after everything properly ended, he texted my friend and basically told her like, oh, I was seeing her, like to basically try to embarrass me or say like, oh, you don't know what she was doing or what she was saying to me. And it's like, that's my best friend, for goodness sake. Of course, I told her everything. He sent her that message to shame me or to be like, you don't really know who your friend is, and to make her kind of love me less. But what he doesn't understand is that people love me not because I'm perfect, but because I'm honest.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct,
Uh-oh.
but
So,
it's wordy
I did
and
not
hard
sign
to read.
in to my correct
It undermines
YouTube
the
account.
writer's message,
Uh-oh.
and the
Because of
word
that,
choice is bland.
We have to suffer through
Grammarly's
ads.
cutting-edge technology
imagine?
helps you craft
Skip ads.
compelling,
Okay? Teaching you
understandable
how to
writing
type
that makes an
properly.
There's a
impact
skip
on your
ads
reader.
button.
There is, isn't there? But my apologies.
Information I just told you guys right now. But I'm not going to be bound by lies.
So
And most people
I think
live
we
their
could
life
we could comment as
bound
she
by
goes
lies,
on with
and that's
this,
why
because
they can't be free.
at
I
this
don't care. I'm
part
gonna
she's
speak
just
my
kind of
truth
talking,
because you know
flexing
what?
her like, oh, you know,
Everybody does it. I'm
well,
just
I tell the
vocal
truth,
enough
you know,
to
something
say
about
yes,
somebody.
right?
She
Anyway,
said, right?
after I fully moved on, I had a closure conversation with him, which was absolutely useless to me. But I'm
Okay, you see that kind of bullshit?
Useless to me.
See that kind of bullshit?
Expectations, man.
Whenever this pattern keeps happening, okay, whenever you keep on making the food with the same ingredient, being you, right? The patterns in your relationship with yourself, patterns in relationship with work, patterns in relationship with other people, relationship with your family, so on and so forth. Let's say it's a restaurant that you have that you keep making these different meals. It's chicken, it's beef, it's this, it's that, and the other, right? And then things keep ending up a certain way. It makes sense to listen to the customer, right?
Right.
Hence, before we get there as to what the customer may or may not say, the first thing that I always do is to, first of all, acknowledge the ways in which I am difficult to be with. Because this has nothing to do with the other person. The other person is going to do what they do, right?
Mhm.
It's about responsibility, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about fault. Everybody knows my Jeff Bezos story, so I'm not going to repeat it. The point is, you need to take action and change, and only you can do it.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, it doesn't matter how good this other person is, remorseful they are, or if they give you $10 billion in reparations. If you do not take the action to change yourself from within, it's all BS. And what I spotted there in that absolutely useless conversation that you had was a pattern of thinking that the client is an idiot, right?
Yeah.
How they're not like my chicken parmesan. They don't know anything, right?
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. They don't, they don't have the right. They're telling, look, it's too salty. They're like, oh, but how dare. Let's continue, because I think that you may think, oh, I'm being too harsh right now. It's unjustified. Because again, no shade to her. This is not really about her, but it's in this pattern of, okay, and she'll complete it now as we play the video. This pattern of saying the customer doesn't know what the F they're talking about, even though customer after customer or scene after scene, this goes on in your life. Because people don't just act this way one time, right?
I'm glad that's the last conversation I had with him, and that was all I needed to move forward. So if you guys are going through a breakup, some people say you don't need closure, some people say you do. I'm big on understanding. Even though I broke up with him, after I broke up with him, he told my friend he'd been thinking about breaking up with me anyway. So I wanted to know, why was he going to break up with me? And the reason that he gave was utter BS. And I was just like, you really think that? And that's probably the thing that he's telling other people. I don't care, because that's a joke. Like, his reasoning was an absolute joke. But if your insecurities won't allow you to get past that certain thing, then I'm not for you and you're not for me. So
Okay, so this is the kind of person, obviously, that I keep a 10-foot pole away from, like, right?
Oh, geez.
And this is not about her again, because I gotta say it. Not that I'm gonna, I don't know her. She doesn't know me. We're never gonna meet. But the idea is, there is a caricature based on the video. She just happens to be the actor in this case, right?
Mhm.
So she's saying something, and I'm just going back what she says. I don't know her, but based on what she says, she just said, the client told me it was salty, but it's total BS. You heard that, right?
Oh,
Do I
yeah.
have to replay it?
And
And then
a couple
said,
times.
hey,
Yeah.
let's say the client said it was spicy, and you're like, oh, you're not man enough to handle my spicy food. Did she not just say that? She not-
Exactly.
Can I get a 1 in the chat if you guys heard the same thing, right? He said he had some reasons why he even wanted to break up with her too. And then she's like, oh, well, why would you ever want to break up with me? So she went to go
exactly.
find out. Apparently she doesn't care, right? Like, I don't care, right? Okay, come on. You go find out. And then the reasons, it's like, it's utter BS. If that's the reason, then, if not man, she didn't say man enough, okay? Right? But she said more or less the same thing.
Yeah.
We know it. Shout out to Kevin Samuel's sign language. Shame. Okay, now you're gonna shame him for his reasons. He was not man enough to deal with your BS, because earlier on she had mentioned how she's honest, right? And we know what people usually mean when they say they're honest, right? It means they talk smack and they don't take accountability
Right.
when the people want to hold them responsible for the smack they talk. So it's shame, insult, guilt, the need to be right, right? If you can't handle this, then your reason is BS. What do you have to say about that?
Oh my God. So goes back to all this ego stuff I love to talk about. Again, people are gonna feel the way they feel. She thinks his reasons, he wants to break up with her is bullshit. But like, dude, like, that's how he feels. The way she feels, right? And you have to accept when people feel a certain way, even if it doesn't agree with you, because at the end of the day, people are people. They're going to feel the way they feel, and you have to agree that they feel that way. That's just the way it is. You can't change people. You can't mold them into what you want, because at the end of the day, you're never really going to be happy with the person if you feel like you need to change them. But yeah, it's, she's coming up with all these things. It's bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But like, what is it exactly?
You said something earlier, Joan. You said you hurt his feelings. It was a hypothetical thing, as in, like, you were saying, oh, why would I want him to come mourn with you? I just broke up with him. I hurt his feelings in a certain way. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, typically speaking, women don't think men have feelings because they think that feelings are always the same thing. But okay, let me put it this way. Okay. Women are very selfish because they're very emotional in a particular way. right? Emotions are very selfish, right? Okay.
Oh yeah.
So anyone who
definitely.
is hear me say this for the first time, there's a whole logic to this. Okay. We sin differently. We have different proclivities. One of the sins of being emotional is you're just gonna be blind to a lot of the other person's perspective.
Yep.
You feel, right?
Yeah.
So that's where this is kind of stemming from, of the kind of like, "Oh, your feelings are not important. Your feelings are probably not even real. How dare you even whatever? It's about me, 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 me. Why? Because women are evil? No. It's
It-
not because women are evil. It's because anybody that's higher on the emotion spectrum, whether they be a man or a woman, is going to have to deal with the baggage of being selfish, because emotions are primarily selfish, right? I mean, that makes sense, right? In the chat, or am I saying something crazy? I think it makes
uh,
sense. Emotions are kind of selfish, they're self-centered, they're not objective. So there's this kind of a sense of the other party not really mattering as much, right? Especially if the other
exactly.
party is a man, because a man's feelings are not the same as a woman's feelings. And if a man says something, okay, bothered him in this case, or in many other cases, this is not my first rodeo or our first rodeo. We know the pattern, right? Something bothered him. Oh, silly man, right? Silly man. How dare he say anything that, whatever, like, oh, it was total BS. This is not about her again. This is the same pattern that keeps on happening over and over and over again. Screw his
Yeah.
emotions, screw his reasons. It's not logical to me. It's me, 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 me.
Yes, exactly. Defending her ego, constantly defending her ego, because how dare this guy want to break up with me? There's no reason for him to want to break up with me. So it's again, like with the ego, right? Like the ego. We talked about this before in some other videos, but I talk about it in my videos too, about like understanding the ego. It's like the ego, everyone has one, whether you realize it or not, we all have one. And with the ego, it's like it thrives on the extremes, right? Of being like the person that you praise, and then the person that you put down, like the victim, right? So she's playing victim here, saying like, how dare he want to break up with me? And unless she can realize that, like, hey, that's my ego reacting, like the emotions I'm feeling. Yes, it's very selfish because it's all about me. It's my thoughts, and my thoughts create these feelings, although my thoughts might not even be true. Her thoughts about this guy might not even be true, but we don't know that yet. So again, it's like she needs to have that self-realization, like, hey, is it really the case? Is she going to ask herself, like, is this really what it is? And if it is, then like, okay, what can I do about it? But clearly she's still in that, defense mechanism, like I have to defend myself and my ego, because how dare anybody break up with me? Come on, look at me.
All right. Shout out to Snuggles. I don't know what the kind of story you were expecting, but I don't have a personal story about Jeff Bezos. If you're so interested in it, it's just a story about responsibility. It's a story about fault versus responsibility. And this whole show here is about responsibility. Okay. So what is the Jeff Bezos story?
Self-responsibility.
The Jeff Bezos story illustrates something: the difference between fault and responsibility, the difference between blame and responsibility. You see, Jeff Bezos is driving a truck, a Tesla truck. I don't know why he removed it from autopilot, but he was driving merrily down the road, going to San Jose in a Tesla truck, and boom, he hits you. You get that so far? Are we following in the chat? Jeff Bezos, the billions and billions of dollar holding Jeff Bezos, hit you with a truck. And he is responsible in terms of fault, in terms of blame, in terms of guilt. Okay. So you have fault, guilt, blame. He goes to court. He is ordered to give you $5 billion. So he gives you reparations. He's remorseful, right? Jeff Bezos is remorseful. He really does want to help you. But guess what? Only you can do the physical therapy. Nobody can move your legs on that treadmill.
Nope.
Nobody can go to that psychotherapist and get over the trauma. Nobody can go through the process of having to learn to read again, speak again, write again, depending on the degree of damage that you sustained from this Jeff Bezos accident. The point is, the responsibility of going to physical therapy, taking step after step on that treadmill, is on you. The responsibility of going to the psychotherapy and healing yourself is on you. It doesn't matter Jeff Bezos cannot even do anything, is the whole point of responsibility versus blame. Blame doesn't mean anything. Blame cannot change anything.
Nope.
Fault will not do anything. Even if you are able to take the person to court and they give you billions, it's still the most important things that it cannot do for you. And that's my Jeff Bezos story, right? So, and Snuggles is here to remind us that men don't matter. They just need to shut up and provide. Indeed, indeed, indeed. So let's go ahead and continue with the video, if you will.
That he's telling other people, I don't care, because that's a joke. Like, his reasoning was an absolute joke. But if your insecurities won't allow you to get past that certain thing, then I'm not for you and you're not for me. So like I said, after I had a conversation, that closure conversation, I was like, done. Before that, I felt like the person that I was missing wasn't the person that he was now. The person I was missing was the person that I was in a relationship when times were good. While I'm at home,
Back to her
I'm
fantasy.
thinking, oh, I miss this person. I'm only missing the good times, not realizing that person that I once knew was dead. That's the whole reason why I broke up with him. And I got a revelation one morning sitting in my bed. I literally turned on my camera like this, obviously not as glamorous, obviously. Turned on my camera and literally just started talking to my camera, because I was talking to my friends and it was good and stuff like that. I was talking to my therapist, but I needed to talk to myself. I needed to have a PSA with myself. And as I was talking, so many revelations were coming out. And the revelation that I got was that I magnified my relationship in my eyes and in the eyes of others. And I was thinking of my...
Shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out. So Joan, what I see here, there's this kind of, it's almost like multiple personalities where she keeps saying, I have a fantasy. I magnified this. I blow things out of proportion in my head. I fell in love with a ghost. But then coming back to reality and saying, you're a bad person, and if you can't get over that, then it's BS, and then that, and oh, it's me. And it's like, what, from whence comes this inability to kind of put these two together? Like, hey, if it is true that I blew my relationship out of proportion, there's the God-devil complex, okay? That, okay. We talked about Chioma and Paul, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see, I tend to, you see, I've experienced this a couple of times, in the sense that the women of a certain kind that are after a certain kind of guy will tend to either, they have this issue, okay, and this is partly the guy's fault for actually attracting a certain kind of women until they figure out and break the pattern. But the woman will have this issue of either you're an angel, right, or you're a demon. There is no human, right? It's, oh my God, this person, I thought they were the world, and they're just the this and the this and the this. And then it's, they're a devil. Oh my God, can't they? Never, ever having the ability to see a human being, right?
Yeah.
And this is a thing that, you know, as we grow up as children, we learn the cycle where you deify your parents, okay? And then you vilify your parents. And then when maturity is when you humanize them, okay? Because you kind of, I mean, you put them on the God level and then you demonize them, and then you got to humanize them. But there's people who have this pattern where you're either a demon or you're a God. There's never room for humanity for you. No room for humanity. And again, there is, and she's going to keep on going to these same kinds of guys, putting them on a pedestal, right? And then knocking them down, building them up to knock them down. Oh my God, is this, and the other? Never seen the human thing, but at the same time, never admitting to it. How can she keep on doing this thing at the same time, Joan? Enlighten us.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It's human nature that we're never satisfied. You know, we're always wanting more, or you know, like there's always something where we're looking for some kind of incentive, you know, but again, we're just never satisfied. And she sounds like she's never satisfied, and she keeps looking for the same type of guy, probably the same type of relationship, you know, unconsciously she's getting into the same kind of relationship. But, you know, what does she really want? You know, like it sounds like she feels like she doesn't need to change herself, you know? And yeah, it's the unfortunate thing. Like, unless you realize that, hey, maybe I need to change my perspective for once and see people for who they are, you know, again, like, you can't expect people to change, but you can change yourself, and only you can do that. And she's, you know, I mean, somebody made a comment about like, oh, there's, you know, like the good selfish and there's the bad selfish. You know, like the good selfish is like you looking out for yourself, taking care of yourself, you know, being good to yourself. But like the bad selfish is like, for me, it's like, you know, somebody just so caught up in their head that they're not even willing to, you know, sympathize with what the other person's feeling. Like, you know, they're not seeking to understand, hey, what's going on the other side. But no, she's just so caught up in her head, you know, just feeling how she feels, thinking that, oh, everybody does this to me. You know, again, like what we talked about earlier, it's like people don't do anything to you. So, like, people don't intentionally harm you. People don't intentionally get in a relationship with you and, you know, with the intention to break up. You know, like, that's, people don't do that. And again, she's just not aware that she's so consumed with her thoughts. You know, everything that she's saying right now, it's all in her head. I can't even imagine all the crazy shit that she probably has in her head, you know, when she's by herself, you know.
Exactly. And you wonder why we as people why friction comes about. And it's like, okay, so Swan asked quite interesting questions. I'm not sure what do you think she means by the confusing about what I want out of life? I think I can understand it, because maybe there's too much stoicism, darkness, and cynicism. Let me say this. Not everybody has to be as cynical as me. You see it from your perspective. Okay, let me put it. Well, I'm one of the happiest people I know. Let me ask you, Joan. Would you consider me a happy person, or am I a downer, happy, generally speaking? Let me put it this way, or even keel, or what would you say in terms of happiness, in terms of, you know?
Yeah.
What would you
Okay.
say?
So everybody, I've known Ike for like, I don't know, like over 10 years now. Like, that's a long time.
Exactly. So she's a good judge. She's a good judge.
Yeah. And I've always thought Ike was just easygoing, very, you know, reasonable, logical. You know, I never really thought that you were super cynical. Like, I thought maybe you have your, you know, sarcasm. You know, I just thought that it's just funny. You know? But at the end of the day, like, I never saw you as someone that's like, oh, he's not happy with himself. Like, you always seemed like you were sure of yourself, sure what you want. You know, I've seen you go through certain situations in your life with relationships. Like, I've seen you through that. And at the end of the day, you've always been reasonable and you've always had like a level head. But I know just through like certain conversations we've had before where like, okay, this definitely affected him, you know, but again, you express it your own way. And I can just sense the way you feel about certain things. So, you know, I can't say that, you know, you're like a negative person. Like, you're just, I think you're easygoing, you know, you accept things as they are. Yes, you feel things. Ike does have feelings. He just has his own way you know, to express it. And, you know, yeah, I mean, just all the time I've known him, like, he's fine. Like, you know, nothing wrong with him. At least
Okay.
for me.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. And I think I was a very generous and
yeah,
accurate.
I was very generous.
But point is this: it's not cynical. Then I would say it's more of just a even-keeled, measured approach towards the chaos that life is. Right? I'm a chaos writer, right? So that's why I mentioned earlier that the main things I look for in life are not my fantasies of order. You know, there's this thing that we do, and we do it when we're kids, right? So you imagine that there is a monster, right? Monster in the closet, monster under your bed. Where was your monster, right? Or maybe it's the crack in the door in the hallway and it's dark. That's where the monster. There's always some kind of thing, some range of the unknown, some horizon, some boundary beyond which there's the dark, the unknown, the scary, the chaos, right? But then what do? We have this blanket, right? Which there's this creepy monster with fangs and everything, and it can totally destroy the whole room. But if we just cover ourselves with the blanket, we're all good, right? That blanket can come in the form of fantasies, okay, that are associated with your ego, associated with groups that make you feel like you're in a warm blanket.
Yep.
Can I get a 1 in the chat if I'm making sense? Because sometimes when I go on these particular psychological to philosophical trysts and such, I'm like, am I just talking to myself? Okay, I'm saying that fake blanket of covering yourself from the chaos that's out there is not real. The fantasy that the blanket protects you is not real. Contending with the chaos, looking into the dark, understanding the unknown, understanding the problems in this world and the reality, stoic perhaps I should say rather than cynical, is really where the power lies. Not in pretending with some other warm blanket fantasy, some other warm group that you're not part of or story you're telling yourself about your ego or this or that or the other that's supposed to contend with the chaos that's out there, both in you and definitely out there in the world. So now I've done my preaching for for the day. But anything to say before we continue?
Yeah, I think, okay, well, she said she was asking, it seems like you don't seek happiness. Well, I mean, the thing about IQ, just he points things out, right? He points things out whether you like to hear it or not, you know? And unfortunately, you know, unless you're able to see past like the emotions of a person, it's really hard to understand that, hey, you know, it's just the ego, you know, that person is feeding their ego with sadness and like victimization and all that. And, you know, as far as like seeing yourself, like, you know, like digging in within yourself, like, you know, we all have these like ideas of people, like, oh, negative ideas, like, oh, bad person, oh, I don't like that person, oh, this person is mean to me, whatever. But not enough times do people look within themselves, you know, like we're always focusing on looking for love and light, right? I mean, I know we're talking about like light and all that, but don't forget to look at the dark side inside you. Look at the dark side inside you. See what those shadows are that are creeping up inside you, and learn how to deal with them. Because in that way, once you see that within yourself, then you can spot that in someone else and see that, hey, this person has their struggles too, you know, and it doesn't have anything to do with me. You know, a lot, you know, they always say like, you know, a lot of like the things that you see in others is just a reflection of yourself. You know, like when you find something you don't like about a person, it's maybe because it's triggering something that you probably have within yourself. You're just not willing to admit like, oh, I have that problem too. So, you know, you always want to look at both sides, right? See the good in people, but then also see the dark side in yourself, if that makes any sense, you know. And that's where you really grow and like start to understand it. But that's the thing, you got to seek to understand other people instead of focusing on like, oh, he did this to me, he made me feel this way. It's not like nobody made you feel that way. You know, your thoughts of that person created those emotions within you. And it's, again, it's all about like how you react, you know, it's how you react. Those are the thoughts that happen in your head. You know, like that person did not put that thought in my head. I made that thought in my head. And with those thoughts, my body, you know, made these emotions. And then it kind of becomes this endless cycle. I'm going off on a rant here.
And by the way, and as I said, you know, I think Swan asks great questions. And they're also, there's some people over here that come to this, K Polymath or Wallace or Aaron B, that do certain other, they do certain things. Like Aaron B is out there just chilling and trolling. K Polymath is out there being a brainiac, making perhaps filthy jokes. Wallace is over there being Jesus Christ or whatever his latest mission is. But they're generally mountaintop type people. But I think that Swan tends to ask the nitty gritty questions, right? So this follow-up question about, well, then, you know, it's not seeming to seek happiness. I think that Wallace's answer is actually correct, though, in the sense that it's human. Yes, I am human too, part of that continuum. But really, it's a question of what do you want, right? And what I focus on is how. If I were to put it a certain way, right? You tell me what you want, okay? I'll kind of tell you the best way how. It's up to you to kind of pick it up. But my life is all about how. It's all about how do I make things work? That's why I always look for the pitfalls. Not because the pitfalls, in other words, the universe is not some kind of moral agent that wants things to be the way I want them to be. I understand that this earth wants to kill me. And the only reason I'm not dead is because I have the shelter, right? Like the weather is not here to cuddle me, dude, right? Neither is anything else. And and again, Stoicism basically says, hey, remove everything, go out there and just think like a hunter-gatherer again. And then realize, oh, let me shut up and follow the program. Watch out for the chaos. watch out for the pitfalls, and have a great time. Here's the part that I need to add, and that's why I asked you, am I a down, am I a bummer? Like, no, I have fun. Right? I'm a fun-loving guy. Okay. So in all this, how do I get things done stuff? I'm having a blast. Okay. It's never kind of like, so the things that Joan talks about, like be centered and your ego and watch the reaction that the other person's ego is having and making sure it's not perturbing and triggering your ego. She's not just sitting somewhere being unhappy, right? You're actually being happy while you're doing that and eating, drinking your kale smoothies and the rest of the hippie horse crap you're into.
Oh my God. Yeah, we can definitely get into the hippie horse crap. Yeah, I mean, so, with this whole talk about like recognizing your ego and being aware of your thoughts and being centered and present, of course, emotions will still happen, but when you're aware of your thoughts, that causes the emotions. That's the thing, right? Everything starts with a thought. Thoughts creates emotions. And with those emotions, there's more thoughts. And then with more thoughts, there's more emotions. That's this never-ending cycle that we humans just unfortunately like get into, right? And that's how we develop like depression and anxiety and all these other things that just keep happening. So, it's all about like breaking that cycle. So back to like whole like, being happy and all that. The thing is like happiness is also just a temporary emotion. So what do we seek? Like for me, I seek joy or seek, like looking for, like to seek the beauty that's right in front of me, or just, there's everything around you. There is something you can appreciate about it, And so for me, it's like, like understanding, like that's something that I strive for. It's just, I seek to understand. I seek to understand the person I'm in a relationship with. I seek to understand the world around me. I seek to understand myself. And through that process, there is happiness that happens. There is the joy that brings up. And for the most part, like I seek peace, I want to be at peace with everything around me, including myself. So, I mean, like what she says, Carl Lesnar, once you kill the ego, you find out who you are. So the thing with the ego, you got to realize that you are not the ego. Your ego is separate from me. Like this is me, like me, my soul, whatever you call it. And then there's the ego, and then there's your mind, and it's those three things that you just have to be able to recognize, like, hey, I'm not my ego, I'm not my mind, I'm not my thoughts. And once you realize that you don't identify with those things, which a lot of people do, like this Britney lady, she definitely identifies with this idea of herself, which her ego, perpetuated. So, you have to be able to recognize that you are not those things. You're not your thoughts. You're not your feelings. And once you recognize that, then you realize you have more control over your life. You have more control over your thoughts. A lot of times our thoughts seem to control us, but you got to control your thoughts. Take a hold of that. That's how you take control of your life. And then that's where you really start to see like, wow, I have something to be happy about. I have something I can appreciate. I have something that, like brings me joy when I realize that all those things, they're not me. That makes sense.
100%, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Taboo Smash in the house. Let's continue, and then we'll read the super chat and then address this whole thing about the intelligence versus. I think that there's some truth to it, but for the most part, there's something else that we're seeing on the correlation causation end of things. But that there are also other reasons why people who have a lot of potential are also more self-destructive. But shout out to Young Swift. Young Swift said it, right? Check out my series on meditation, Swan. So Swan, go to the playlist on meditation and you'll see exactly in a how to meditate series and why to meditate series, the answers to what I consider to be the most fundamental questions of your consciousness. Yeah, I said it. I said, I am your cult leader. Is that not what I just said, Joan? I don't know.
Yeah, Ike has a cult, just so you know. I'm still trying to get in. Like I've known him for 10 years. He still won't let me in. I don't know what I have to do.
I mean, we're still vetting you, Joan. It's okay. We're almost there. Almost there.
Relationship as an ocean, when in reality all I was getting was a drop. I thought my relationship was great, magnificent. I thought this person that I was with was amazing and magnificent and the best thing since sliced bread, and I over exaggerated him in my own mind. And I think that's what kept me stuck or in the relationship longer than I needed to. When I was seeing the red flags, it should have been a reason for me to jump ship quicker. But I had put this person on a pedestal that he did not deserve. I was speaking to him, I was speaking of him like a king. And that's partially because I wanted to, see the best in him, and I wanted to speak out what I wanted to see. But at the same time, my relationship was a fantasy. What I
Get your
Oh,
Gotta skip the ad again. Coming
yeah.
soon.
You gotta let
ad
it play
skip
5
in-
seconds.
Hey, ayo. But let's see here. So there's something that she said there
About
when she
his
said forgiveness.
emotions.
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead, comment on that.
Right. She said something about his emotions, like, oh yes, they're just his emotions. But to her, it was just like a what? Like a drop, or I don't know her British slang, but like she clearly disregards his feelings. It's all about how she feels, disregards how he feels.
Okay.
Not
Again,
seeing him.
again,
Yeah.
again. This is something that ladies do all the time. So to the ladies listening, I don't know. It's like what if I think it's like less than 20%. Definitely, I don't know. It could be like 10% for sure of women here. It's mainly men here, 90%. But to the women who are listening, okay, this is not something that she only her does. What I'm saying is this: that there's a proclivity, a tendency for you, and you should look for it in your life, right? Just a kind of a tip out there. Check to see if you are belittling the being of a man because it's different from yours. Like his needs, his wants, his logic, his whatever you may consider important is subject to your verification, right? And your approval. His very humanity. Well, whatever. His reasons are bullshit. His emotions are bullshit, right? Not that. Look, again, this is stuff that is going to screw you up, okay? So this is not me trying to cuddle you and make sure that, I'm just saying, hey, do it or not. If you want to be screwed up, continue with your screwed up ways, right? Generally speaking, guys like me don't give a F what you do, right? But it's something to notice. My whole principle of always watch for the dark sides, as Joan said, look at the dark sides in you. I say always look for the obstacles, look for the chaos and all that kind of stuff. That's how you get things done in life. That's how you stay happy and not crazy and deluded and all this kind of crap. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and ask you, Joan, anything you have to say about the fact that she said she thought of him or spoke of him as a king? Here's the problem with what I think she's saying. She says, oh, I had this fantasy and all this stuff, and I spoke of him as a king. Yes, you should speak of him as a king, right? Why? Because that's kind of like the role that you're in, okay? Do you think that he should be doing certain things for you? Like being nice and, the this and the spoiling and that. Yeah, okay, then fine. You want to be a princess? Okay, then yes, treat him as a king. But that's almost like the idea that you cannot play a role, okay? We following here? Are we following, ladies and gentlemen? The idea that you cannot play a role, right, of the supporter of the king without completely being lost in fantasy is the problem.
Right.
Let me say that again. There is a role to be played here in relationships. And she said, oh, I spoke of him like a king. I'm like, we better well speak of him like a king, especially if you want to be in a long-term relationship with this person forever, okay? Because you do want your king after all, right? Every woman wants to look up to her man, okay? That's the thing I have to keep on repeating. And I keep on repeating it even to women. I have to tell them all the time that don't you want to look up to your man and then stop with the double talk. I want to look up to him, but I also want to walk on him like a rug. Like, come on. It's silly. It's silly. It's crazy. It's insane. Stop it. Get some help. Shout out to Michael Jordan. But again, so the idea is this. You have an inability to play a role, which is to say, hey, that's the king, without completely being lost in fantasy that then causes you to lash out, break everything up, run again, repeat the pattern. That's what we don't want to do, ladies and gentlemen. We don't want to repeat the pattern. We need to be able to play a role. He is the king without you being crazy. Am I crazy?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's interesting you point out that whole thing, like, playing a role. We are all playing roles, okay? So if you want to detach yourself from your ego, and not really identifying as like, oh, I am a woman, I'm Filipino, I'm married, or I, come from this family. Those are all identities. But really, if you want to detach yourself from identity, we play roles. So she's calling him a king, or what's her idea of a king? Okay, well, she's playing a role of, her partner's a king. Is she being a queen? Is she being queen? Is she playing that role that supports the king, right? I mean, like, so you were talking about, like, like she needs to be the support of the king. That's what kings look for. A king type guy is going to look for a woman that supports him in whatever he does, in ruling the land, and building an empire. He needs a partner that supports him. But back to the whole playing roles, we all play roles. Like, the problem is people get so attached to these ideas of themselves. Like me, like, let's say me being attached to the idea of, like, I'm a wife. And so then this idea of a wife, I just play, like, do all these things, attach myself to this identity of being a wife, when really it's a role that I chose to partake in. So that's just the way it is. And then, like, if,
and you don't blame your husband for for this play that you guys are playing. It's like,
yeah, exactly,
like he's
right?
the one that wrote it, or he's the director, or you did not come
Yeah.
into it willingly. You start complaining about the lights, the camera,
Yeah, exactly. You auditioned for the role, you got the part. So now you benefit from the role, I guess, in whatever way you see it. But, we all play roles, and if she's, calling him a king, well, then are you being a queen?
100%. So I'm going to read the super chats and we're going to address them. Shout out to Taboo Smash. Let's go ahead and if you mind, please reading what Taboo Smash has to say there on the screen.
I noticed highly intelligent are often pessimistic and sometimes self-destructive. Yes and no. I mean, I would say yes, highly intelligent people also get their egos, get a hold of them, like say, oh, I'm so intelligent. So obviously, like, the ego holds on to this idea, like, I'm so intelligent, like everybody sucks.
Let me add one small thing to that and you continue. So they're intelligent, they got that ego thing. They can hold on, they can put their ego on their high intelligence, number one.
Yep.
But then number two is, because they're intelligent, they can bullshit themselves very well. Okay. Now I'm speaking from experience, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Oh yeah, you're a master bullshitter.
If you're a master bullshitter, don't think you're not fooling yourself too. Yep. You can fool yourself. You can have rationalizations on many different levels, okay, about all kinds of crap. Meanwhile, the issue you need to be getting done that you're not getting done. But anyways, continue.
Yes. So as far as, like, the pessimistic thing, like, because, like, let's say I'm a highly intelligent person, my ego gets, like, takes over, and I'm like, yeah, I'm so intelligent. Like, then I become pessimistic because, like, I see something wrong with everybody. My ego wants to see something wrong with everybody because I'm better than everybody. I'm more intelligent than everyone. But then with the self-destruction part, like, yes, that could definitely happen because, then they start, fool themselves. They bullshit themselves. They believe all these things because, my ego really believes I'm the most intelligent person in the world. And so all the decisions I make, the way I, treat people, the way I interact with people, the way, I perceive the world around me, I don't realize that, hey, I'm getting people to hate me. I'm getting people to not like me, not want to be around me. Oh, I'm making it so difficult. Like, he makes it difficult or I make it difficult for myself to live a peaceful life because, I just find something wrong with everybody. But again, it's the ego, right? Like, there's people, like, highly intelligent people that, don't let their egos, take over. And I don't think they're necessarily pessimistic or self-destructive. It's always the ego. If you want to blame it blame it on the ego.
100%. So let me talk about one perhaps real reason why people see some correlation. A highly intelligent person is going to be able to more spectacularly show you their self-destructive behavior or spectacularly show you their cynicism or pessimism, right? Let's just say people are equally kind of cynical, or let's just say, put it this way, cynicism is equally or evenly distributed amongst the population, right? But intelligent people can express it clearer to you. After all, pessimism is something that needs to be kind of verbally articulated, right? Pessimism is not generally in your walk or your talk, right? You can be a pessimistic guy that smiles or an optimistic person that frowns, right? You get the idea. So highly intelligent people can weave all the tales together about how everything is going to crash. And also it goes to their ego as well, because they tend to be people like to hang the ego on having the special access. They know the thing. They want to let you in on the latest conspiracy theory. They know what's really going on behind the scenes. And, you know, the whole cult leader vibe, if you will. So they can also do that too. But one last thing on the whole self-destructiveness of people with a lot of potential. And it's not just intelligence in this case. Let's say it's we see this amongst, let's say, highly talented celebrities or so on and so forth that go out with a big bang. And it's because they're not cultivating to the fullness of their capacity their acreage, right? The idea is we all have potential, right? You have potential, Joan, right? If you're not doing your best to reach your potential, what do you think is going to go with all that? Where do you think all that energy is going to go? Right? It's got to go somewhere. The idea is this, okay? That thing called potential, okay? It's a whole ball of energy too that comes with it. There's an obsessive and there's an energy that is required to be a Michael Jordan. There's an energy that Michael Jordan cannot help but have to practice. Guess what? If he's not practicing, what do you think he's going to be doing? You think he's going to be chilling, playing? No. So here's the idea, okay? There is something about people with a lot of potential. It's like a bomb. It's a simple thing. You guys get the idea? Simple, right? If they're not doing that thing obsessively, they're going to be trouble somewhere else. We've all seen the documentary of Michael Jordan. If he was not a basketball, you know, he will be terrorizing somebody somewhere, right? So that's the kind of whole thing about people with high potential being a spectacular shining star. When they explode, they're going to explode marvelously and beautifully, and you're going to be able to see it. So that's it for that one. Let's continue with the super chats, and then we'll go back to video. What is this one? What does this one say? I think it's a super sticker, but whom is it from? How much is it, Joan?
Crawford. $5 from Amber Crawford. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amber Crawford, for the very generous. And maybe we can get Joan another battery or camera with this. Yes. And what is this one about, Joan?
Uncle Ike, let me get about 10% of your brilliance.
Well,
this is why he does his videos. This is why he does all these weekly videos, to share his brilliance.
Oh. Yeah, and we're still working on your application, Blind Guy, His Wife, Their Life, application into the cult, so maybe you can get some percentage. Let's continue, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are talking about patterns and looking in the mirror, and relationships is a place where patterns tend to repeat themselves unchecked. You know why, Joan? Because there's another person that you can blame it on. In other words, if there's a pattern that you tend to repeat, remember I told you about those people who go to the gym and then they stop. They go to the gym for New Year's resolution. That's a pattern, right? We all recognize that pattern of human behavior. People go to the gym in January and then they stop. The thing is, they don't have anybody else to blame but themselves in that pattern, right? So while it is difficult to change even a pattern like that, they still have more of a chance of changing because there's no one else to blame. But guess what? Why people don't change in relationships? Because the relationship is always there, right? There's someone there all the whole time.
Blame game.
It's not just you and your BS, not following through with your gym stuff, not starting that LLC, your laziness and your decrepitude and your inequities and the evil in your heart. No, it's not you. All of a sudden, when it's relationships, always about the other person. And that's why the patterns repeat forever, because you fail to take accountability, because relationships are a place where you can always blame somebody else. We all know that you're a sick effer, as we said, guys. Everyone else is, but all of a sudden, in this one part of your life, it's everybody else. These things keep happening to me. I meet all these assholes, right? Any comment on that particular aspect before we move on here, and we'll probably start wrapping up soon.
Yeah, just from my understanding of humans, including myself, we are all addicted to suffering. We want to see the world as, oh, everyone's out to get me. They're all the bad guys. I'm the only one who's good, and therefore everyone's out to get me. Everyone's out to hurt me. Everyone's out to put me down. So we're addicted to that suffering. But guess what? We create our own suffering. We create our own suffering by letting our thoughts get away, from us, and then we get lost in our thoughts, and then we get caught in these emotions. And it's when you realize that, hey, I can take a step back. that's, you know, the emotional intelligence starting to kick in. That's when you start developing that self-awareness. It's just a lot of people have a hard time separating themselves from that, you know. So again, you know, we all create our own suffering within relationships. We create our own suffering by holding on to, like, oh, what he said, she said, oh, he, you know, hurt my feelings yesterday, even though maybe he didn't, you know, but we hold on to all these things that we perceive as bad, you know. And this is why a lot of people just don't grow, you know. With this Greenie lady, clearly she hasn't grown. She hasn't figured out the self-development part. I mean, yeah, I saw one of her motivational videos where she's, you know, it's like, oh yeah, that's totally motivating and all that, but it's all like the positive shit, you know. Like, she's not reflecting on, like, hey, you know, like, not everything's going to go my way. Not everything's going to be all this love and light and stuff. You got to look at your shadows. But, you know, back to, you know, self-accountability, you know, we create our own suffering. We can always change our perspective. And when you're in a relationship, this is an opportunity for you to grow, you know, because you get a chance to see a person for who they are as a human, you know, and be able to look beyond the ego, realizing, hey, that's just his ego and my ego clashing, you know, which always happens. But again, like, relationships are like an opportunity for you to grow, you know, to have that self-awareness, develop that self-awareness, you know. That's the self-development that we all have to go through. But you have to be willing to look at yourself and be like, hey, what can I do? What can I change?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. There's one last thing that she mentioned, and I don't know if you're particularly pressed for time, but there's one last thing that she played here, and I think I wrote the time down at 12 minutes and 30 seconds. Or either way, let me know if you gotta hop out.
No, I'm good.
You're good. So 12 minutes, 30 seconds. Let's see if that's the correct thing. And we'll analyze it.
He really needed you and you weren't there and you didn't show up and you didn't show love and you didn't show care far outweighs all the times when it was convenient for you to take me out on dates or Valentine's Day or whatever. It was convenient for you. Buying me some trainers is not going to break your bank. Do you know what I mean? So like I'm saying, I over fantasize relationship. So one thing that really helped.
Does everyone understand what she's saying? Do you get what she's saying, John?
Yeah, I think so.
Tell us, John. You know what she's saying. What is she saying, John? Because there's some context behind it, but I think given human beings, and we know okay, let me just say it. What she's basically saying is, okay, well, there are things, okay, that are convenient for you to do. Like, oh, you're a man, you got money, so taking me out to dinner, this and that is like, it's not inconvenient. So I'm not. Therefore, here's the spirit, okay, and this spirit, okay, is the one. I'm gonna a little bit of a joke, okay. I'm gonna pull out the high value man cheer. Now, I'm gonna speak now for all high value men out there. This fucking spirit right here is fucking disgusting, and we keep it far the fuck away from us. This shit about, oh, well, you did, you know, all that stuff you did, it doesn't really matter because this one time. It's like, you have no freaking idea the sacrifice that it takes just to sit there in that dinner with you, do you? You don't look at it that way. You don't understand that people's time is freaking valuable. You're like, oh, well, you know, you did this and it was convenient for you. You like to eat anyways, right? You like to do this. Like, when have you done? Here's the idea, okay? This bullshit, okay? The idea behind this bullshit is, I want you to suffer for my sake. I just want you to, I want you to see you, I want to see you bleed, something that makes you uncomfortable, something that just, you know, because everything you do, you know, it's easy on you. You know, yeah, sure, you bought me those sneakers. She said those. She did that, right? Yep. It's easy for you to buy sneakers, right? It's like, they gave you a gift.
How many hours did he work for that gift?
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter how many. They gave you a gift, and you're like, there is that idea of, I am Jehovah, and when I take offerings, right? Like you see where I'm going. You're enough of a biblical scholar, okay? I get to decide which offerings are okay and which ones are not. I get to choose who Cain is and who Abel is. Well, your offerings were not, you know. I did not. I want to see some sacrifice, some more blood in your whatever. This is what this person is saying. Now, how do I know that? I'm very much in touch with my sick effery, right? And in the annals of my consciousness, shows me something which is in everybody else's consciousness, which is that's what she's saying right now. people want this to inconvenience other people in order to feel important.
Yep.
And if you do anything that I think is convenient for you, which is impossible to judge on your behalf, how do you know what's convenient for me or not? Then anything that I think is then I can't count. That's, you know, oh, you just had to do that. You were going to do that anyways, right? Well, you know, sure, you made dinner for me, but you had to eat too, right? I don't know. What do you have to say about this? And this again, ladies, this is not just her. This happens all the we hear this all the time. Men will tell me, yeah, we hear this all the time.
Yeah, women want to see the effort, you know. I remember saying, you just talking about all that. I remember in one of my first relationships that it lasted a while, actually. It was a long relationship, and, you know, ended. We were young, like I think we were like 19 or 20. And I remember having my, you know, crazy, like dramatic female moment. I was like, you never drive out of your way for me, you know, like just to surprise me. And then so like he did that. Like he used to live like 45 minutes away. He came and showed up at my house 10 p.m. at night with like flowers. And then he did exactly what I wanted him to do, you know. And it was like, at the end of the day, I was like, okay, he did it. You know, it's like, yeah, I inconvenienced him, you know, I made him do something super romantic, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, it's like, why did I do it? Just so my ego feels good. I think there's that part of like that
it's
wanting
fine,
that.
Though. Here, Joan, let's bring out some artistry here. The beauty of this thing is this. Okay. Now, not everyone is an artist. Not everyone is a philosopher. Okay. But you approximate to the degree to which you can. The beautiful thing is it's fine to try to lure him to do some things, right? But it is not to the level where you're making it ruin your life. Because again, these are about patterns, okay? There's a reason why, you know, these people with these kinds of patterns, these kinds of thinking, right? And the modern day, let's say, the marriage rates, the one father, whatever, one parent household, there's a reason why it's that way. And it's these kinds of patterns. And in other words, it's like, well, you can be like, you know, I want to feel like in other words, it's women. I mean, men know that a woman sometimes just wants to maybe not solve a problem. This is in the category of solve a problem versus I just want to argue or bitch or kind of vent about it. So it's like, it's fine. And if we have a way of kind of knowing, right? Because you play the role and you don't have to all just say, oh, well, now I'm just venting. But if you can, maybe there's a tone in your voice that's kind of the vent tone, and okay, cool, it's just vent, okay, cool, this blah blah blah. Oh, she just wants me to do this thing, blah blah blah. But this whole thing of, oh, you know, I'm gonna fuck up the whole, you know, I'm not happy because. But he's okay to sit by my side. This is the person that I want to for the things I'm better in life. But because of these other things, I'm gonna F it all up. That is what we're trying to prevent. Okay, there's a fine art to that whole seductive game. There's a fine art to actually. Here's something that I'm gonna do a complete 180, Joan.
Okay.
Let me tell you something about being girly, right? Which men actually like, right? Boys, let's say, the boy and the man likes something that's girly in a woman. And there's a part of being girly, an essential part, which is that fantasy fairyland stuff, right? And it is essential to femininity. But it is like a soup. You are, that is, and your relationships, that is, right? Let me get a 1 in the chat if you guys see where I'm going here. You're like a soup. You have this many different ingredients, okay? One of the ingredients that makes a woman is a little bit of that fantasy stuff, okay? But if you don't know what to do with it, it becomes like kryptonite. Or you take a whole jar of salt and you pour it in the soup. The fantasy, what people may even call delusion of women, is something that makes her girly, okay? It's a girl thing. But if you don't know how to play the instruments you have, it's going to sound like shit. Right? That is the idea. It's not that your attributes per se are bad or good or whatever. Just like men have all their effed up sides to them, right? And they need to check it, right? In order to be the man, right?
Yep.
So I just confessed something, okay? There's actually an aspect of delusion that's part of what makes a woman girly. Just like I said, there's an aspect of that seductive, just go out of your way to do something crazy for me. That's part of the whole fun of a relationship. But if you don't know how to handle these things, they become like dangerous little weapons and knives. You end up skewering yourself and everybody and the future generations, right? Final word on that, Joan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole like knight in shining armor. I mean, yes, women want that. Women want the guy to save the day. But
and we love that shit too.
Yeah,
but it's a role. It's like you keep on effing. It's like that's why I said the artistry, right? You don't understand how to be artistic and play a role without losing their minds. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So, what are we talking about here? Yeah, the roles, right? Like, the women want to feel like they're protected, and the guy's gonna do everything, for them and make them feel wanted and safe and desired. But it's what do you get out of it, right? Like after that, like you feel good, and then what? You gotta still go on with the relationship. You can't expect the guy to do that every single day. You gotta live your life. The guy gotta work. You gotta do things. He has to figure out how he's gonna provide for you, right? Because that's what women want, right? So, it's that thing like she was talking about, how in the beginning everything was good. Everything was, like the things that she missed were all the good times and stuff. Yeah, maybe he was doing all those knight in shining armor type things, but like you can't expect someone to do that every day. You just can't. I mean, unless we're back in the mid ages and you're like in a tower or something. Like it's just not the way the world works, and it's not the way humans are. People got to live their lives. You got to let people live their lives, and you got to let people be who they are, be human. But I think that's the thing with expectations, right? Women have expectations the way I'm sure men have expectations for the women. So just be aware, become aware of these expectations, become aware like, hey, are they realistic? Are they reasonable? And you have to be open to, hey, people are not always going to live up to what you want. Maybe this guy that she's complaining about, like she wants him to be emotionally available to her, but like that's women, like guys don't really, I mean, I doubt, I don't know. I just don't think like guys really, gather with other guys and vent their emotions. That's not a guy thing to do, but women want that, from their guy, maybe the guy just doesn't know how to do that.
The guys call you names if you do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like, what's the name?
A B.
Yeah.
Like over here acting like a little
bitch. A little B. And for me, it's like I don't want to be with a little bitch. Sorry, like women wants to be with a man. Their idea of a man, like he's not gonna be a little bitch. Sorry, you're highly emotional. Like yeah, I mean the guy can maybe sit there and listen to you, but again, like what can he really do for you emotionally? If you need emotional support, go to your girlfriends because they know how to do that.
Thank you very much, Joan. Go to your when you find Superman, keep him Superman and then go somewhere else for the puppies. Don't try to turn Superman into a puppy because you will start hating him, hating yourself, screw up your life and the rest of the generations, as I say, which is not a joke because these families that get destroyed or families that never get started or blah, 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 actually have outcomes for actual people's lives, right? Like people not having you. We know what stability is and we know what lack of stability can do. Right. So let's not make it seem like it. In other words, these things have far-reaching consequences for the community. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we were saying, one of these days you're gonna bring your little drum pad, and then we're gonna do a little freestyle.
Yeah, maybe, a little like delayed freestyle.
A little delayed freestyle, like I tried last time. But one of these days, anyways, off the camera conversation about how to solve that problem of streaming live. I think I actually solved it, but that's it. I'll let you know. You got to go through an intermediary, right? In other words, you can't go directly from like StreamYard into YouTube. You got to go in somewhere else that kind of, you get what I'm saying? And then you're streaming that third product, that live one, and then you stream. Anyways, whatever.
We'll talk.
whatever sense that made. Shout out to Blind Guy, his wife, their life, the sponsor for the show today, the sponsor for the show for that $20 super chat. Shout out to everyone else that also contributed, people that talked in the chat. I don't know. Did we get this one? Did we get this from Nick Pin?
For the offering plate. What's up, Ike?
Thank you very much, Nick Pin. Got to make sure we do a cleanup here for the people who are putting those dollars out there. This is another one. Did we get this one?
Yes. Yeah. He wants 10% of your brilliance.
There you go. There you go. Shout out to you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're gone.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what draws behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come get it. I say, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come get it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.